Ready? Good afternoon.
Start again.
Okay, let's try it again. Good afternoon. My name is Raymond Skinner, Chairman of the DCHA Stabilization and Reform Board, and I want to call this meeting to order. This is the regular monthly meeting of the District of Columbia Housing Authority being held today, April 12th, 2023. This meeting is being held via WebEx video conferencing, and the board is here in person. The time is 1:03 p.m. I'd like to, as we do with at the start of every meeting, call for a moment of silence. Thank you. Today's agenda is our regular agenda. We have invited members of the public to sign up to speak via our website, or those who would like to just view the meeting can do so live via the DCHA website linked to our Facebook Live page. The Board of Commissioners welcomes constituent inputs on matters of public concern and offers you today an opportunity to express your views of DHCD's decision by its management and this board during the public testimony portion of every meeting. However, we require that members of the public who attend our meetings abide by certain rules of decorum to allow the board to complete the business before it. For this virtual meeting, DCHA asks that you remain muted until you are instructed to speak and that you do not use the chat to comment when it is not your turn to speak. Members of the public should not engage in any disruptive conduct or loud, threatening, or abusive language during the board meetings. This includes any loud outbursts or shouting during times when you have not been invited to speak. Anyone who violates these rules will be removed from the virtual meeting. Serious or repeated violations of the rules may result in your being barred from speaking at future meetings. We appreciate your interest in the matters before us today and thank you in advance for abiding by these rules of conduct. At this time, I will call for a roll call to determine if we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Blackson.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Burbridge.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Clay.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Dickerson.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris, I believe we have her on our screen.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Murphy.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Silla. And Chairman Skinner.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 8 commissioners present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I would like for the commissioners to consider the minutes of the March 8th, 2023 board meetings. Are there any additions, corrections, comments on the minutes? If none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Second. It has been properly moved in second. With that, can we have a vote? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved as read. Thank you. Okay, so today we have a really long agenda. As most of you know, there are a number of resolutions that we've been working on for the past several months, and many of you have weighed in with comments and testimony on these resolutions. So because of that, I'm going to change the order of the agenda that was published. So first of all, we're going to take a couple of resolutions that we think can go pretty quickly. Then we're going to come back and have the executive director's report, and then we'll have resident comments on the resolutions, and then we'll have board actions on the resolutions. And finally, at the end, we'll come back to have general testimony, both for residents and for non-residents. So first, I'm going to call Resolution 2318, which is the authorizing execution of a contract for DCHA financial statements and single audit services. to approve Resolution 2318?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Can we have a roll call vote for Resolution 2318?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Dickerson,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Blackson,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Silla has now joined us. Commissioner Silla,
Yes.
thank you. And Chairman Skinner,
Yes.
thank you. Did I get Commissioner Blackson? I'm
Yes.
sorry. Okay. Mr. Chair, you have 7 yes, the resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you. The next I want to call Resolution 2323, and this is to amend DCHA Resolution 23-07 and to affirm the resolution of the DC Housing Enterprise Board to make a deployment of up to $11 million in the new market tax credit allocation to the DC Safe Project. Can I get a motion to approve?
Commissioner Harris, motion to approve?
Second.
Commissioner Silla, second.
It's been properly moved in second. Can we have a vote on Resolution 23-23?
23. Commissioner Blackson,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Silla,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Dickerson,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
thank you. And Chairman Skinner,
Yes,
thank you. Mr. Chair, you have 7 yes, the resolution is approved.
thank you. So, excuse me. Next, I want to call Resolution 23-25, and this is to authorize a contract modification for the DCHA Board of Commissioners dashboard, known as Diligent, and this is with Analytic Management Software Company. Can I get a motion to approve Resolution 23-25?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Commissioner Silla, second.
It's been properly moved in second. Can we have a roll call vote for Resolution 23-25?
Thank you. Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Silla,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Dickerson,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Blackson
Yes.
and Chairman Skinner,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Chair, you have 7 yes, the resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to call on Executive Director Donald to give us an overview of the resolutions related to the MTW plan, the administrative plan, and the ACOP plan. And so I will do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, commissioners and members of the audience. I'm going to give, as the chairman said, overviews of significant changes to these monumental plans that will allow us to come into compliance with HUD and reflect a very intense few months of a lot of work on behalf of the DCHA team with a lot of input from all of our stakeholders. So just to level set, I want to remind everyone that, excuse me, we, in terms of our communications of these plans, we issued a notice in the Washington Post on February 12th that kind of started the public notice period, and published on our website on February the 14th, had a 45-day comment period, as you can see from the timeline. I want to spend a minute walking through all of the input that we've had. I think this has been an extraordinary amount of outreach, input, engagement with everyone whose lives could be touched by these changes in these plans. We started on February 28th, hosting our citywide advisory board here. And to remind everybody, those are the elected leaders of our resident councils. So they have a wide reach. We also met with a housing provider work group. Those are our landlords primarily, so that's focused on our admin plan and the voucher policies. We had a public hearing on March 6th. Then we met with our resident council presidents, and also should acknowledge two of our resident leaders here, Rosa Burbridge, who of course chairs the Citywide Advisory Board, and Denise Blackson, who is a resident council president and serves as a leader of the resident council presidents group. So they were very active in leading the sessions and bringing information back and forth from residents. We met on March 14th with the DC Preservation Network. We had a meeting on the 15th with our advocacy community. Then a nod to another commissioner, Commissioner Silla, who is Executive Director of the Interagency Council on Homelessness. We hosted a meeting with her Housing Solutions Group, where 71 people were there. And then we had another meeting of the Housing Provider Work Group. In addition, our team went out to almost all of our public housing properties and had pretty decent turnouts. The numbers look small, but really they're, I think, given sometimes turnout in elections, this was a pretty good responsiveness. So a lot of input, and I want to share with so we'll go to the next one. The top issues by stakeholder group, they're all pretty similar. So lots of interest in our pet policy, lots of interest in the new rent requirements, community service, the waiting list, and some other public housing policies. So I want to go through the major issues and the feedback we got and recommendations that we've made to this board to change them. And the changes that we have are reflected in the policies that have been posted and are in front of you today. So the first is on the waiting list, and this is where we are eliminating the preference categories. It's a reminder, the way that the waiting list, both for the choice housing choice voucher and public housing, would require us to go in a certain order, and that other people who are maybe interested in public housing are not able to skip over that order of prioritization. On the voucher side, we're very fortunate in the city to have such huge investments in local vouchers. And so this opens it up where we are able to ensure that people can access, or residents can access, housing without becoming homeless. There may be need for housing if you're in a domestic violence situation, if you're double or tripled up in a situation that is not really conducive to good family living, that then you would have to literally become homeless and go through the homeless system. The other thing this allows on the public housing side, we have people who are in public housing who have signed up for vouchers, and they would have to wait. They're not eligible because they're not homeless. And so this gives a little bit more flexibility, and this is consistent with other public housing agencies. So we didn't make any changes there. Then we are also going to, as we've talked about quite a bit, a site-based waiting list for public housing. This is a very strong recommendation that came as a result of our experience over the last year in working through a decades-old waiting list and not really having a great responsiveness in terms of people interested and moving into our vacant units. As we know, that's one of that is our number one priority. So we are going to work through the existing wait list in May, and then we'll be able to open up a site-based waiting list this summer. So we are keeping the policy recommendations. On also regarding the wait list, we had proposed that people who do not respond to our outreach would have 15 days to respond, and if they didn't, that they would be removed from the waiting list. We heard from a lot of people who were anxious about that and thought that was too short a period of time, given mail and other circumstances. So we have expanded that to 30 days. And that we do agree, making a note that we really have to do more robust outreach. And this is one where we certainly will be working with our advocates and service partners when we're ready to open up the wait list.
You have a couple safeguards listed there in the
Yes.
Commissioner Reed. Sorry, so what is the process? Like, who does a family go to if they believe they were removed in error?
So they would reach back out to us through our website. And I think when we're going to open up the new waiting list, everything is going to be done through a portal so that there won't be any paperwork and waiting in line, that sort of thing. But they'll be able to reach out and, sorry, someone responding with more clarity on.
Yes, Director Donald. Good afternoon.
Yes,
This is Nona.
thank you.
This is Nona East, Senior Vice President, Property Management Operations. What'll end up happening is somebody states that they were taken out the list in error. They would actually contact the Housing Authority. It would actually be the Director of Quality Control that they would contact. And then their case would be reviewed for accuracy, and then we would provide notification back to them on the status of their inquiry.
So to that point, obviously, we need to make it very clear in our efforts, all of our outreach efforts, how people, who they should contact and make sure that we are being responsive. I will point out, we're doing that to this day, since we've been doing the big mass leasing events. People have said, hey, I didn't get contacted, and they reach out in a variety of ways. I might myself get an email, and then I send them over to the Director of Quality Assurance, who is leading up that effort. But
The first time that we do this, I worry about like the volume of
yes,
appeals coming in. So if we looked at maybe some temporary support or ways so that residents can hear back in a timely fashion.
we will have a period of time. May 1st is our last big lease up event when we are literally sending notices to all 22,000 people on the wait list who've already been notified at least once, where we're saying, okay, this is your time. And then we have a period of time after that before we will be able to open up the new wait list to catch people who may have indicated that we didn't reach out to them. So we built in a period of time before we open up the new wait list to accommodate that.
Director Donald, what is the line of questioning from Commissioner Reed is flagging to me what is the process for translating these policies into procedures and protocols that are operationalized by the Housing Authority? And maybe even more importantly, what kind of access will the board have to reviewing these procedures and protocols and weighing in on, or even evaluating the efficacy of what will be implemented by the Housing Authority?
Well, we're developing procedures now, so we've been in a parallel process because we have to be ready to go to start training, which is the next step. So we have procedures for most of these that have been drafted with our consultants. And then we have a training plan that will start in April and May to go through, we'll get everyone trained. And for some of the more external facing policy changes, then we will have communications plans. Like the wait list is one, we will have a specific communications plan. Others, that pertain to residents we will target those directly to our residents or to our partners. So we have a whole kind of communications planning process to roll these out. In terms of the procedures and the board weighing in, I don't think that we anticipated having the board to weigh in on the procedure since it's really operational at the staff level. But we can share information if you've got suggestions and feedback, then that we would take into consideration.
I think maybe a check-in in terms of where you are in the process, how things are advancing, and the sorts of complaints and concerns that you are hearing from residents as you roll out
Yeah.
the policies and procedures would be really helpful.
Yes, we will, and we'll constantly improve. It's a continuous feedback loop.
Mhm.
Some of the comments that we have heard from people are, well, DCHA is going to implement all of these changes or implement procedures or policies that we already have and haven't been implementing. How are we going to do that? How do we have the bandwidth to do that? And I know that those who are looking from outside don't know all of the work that we've been doing to build the organizational muscle and infrastructure at the same time to do this. And I have pushed my team that we can't embrace any policy changes that we're not ready to implement, that we're also building in, as I said, the procedures, the training, and quality assurance processes, as well as tracking and accountability. So all of these are not words on paper. This is part of a whole system change for DCHA.
Director, I know you're a big data person, so I just want to echo, I think the more data you can share with us and with the public about how this process is going, how many, it may be that, I mean, let's all hope for the best and that we're going to have a very small number of people who miss that 30-day window. And it'd be great to sort of know what that is and the categories of reasons or things like that.
Okay, we will do that. Okay, now for initial lease up. Next one, so there obviously a big item that we have to implement is the rent reasonableness policy. And I think we've talked about that. We will have an education session to the board on all of on the voucher program and how rents are set and all of that. I'll talk with the chairman to find out when the board would be ready for that. But this is where we would be moving to having a tool that we have an RFP out now to select a tool that we would use on a unit by unit basis to determine what the fair market rent would be and the reason. And so that's called rent reasonableness, which of course HUD requires. We also are developing an implementation plan because we've got to sweep in and figure out the impact of that on all of the 19,000 or so contracts that we already have. We don't want to have any adverse impact on residents who are currently living in units, and nor do we want to destabilize the rental market. So we're still working through all of that. We should be ready in another month or so to brief the board on where we are with that. The initial term, we had proposed that the initial term of a voucher to give families time to find a unit would be 120 days. Originally, currently we have 180 days, and people were concerned that that was too short a time, that there's a lot of competition, as we all know, in the rental market. And there are other things outside of our control that delay a person's ability to lease up. So we have moved that back to 180 days in response to the feedback. Okay. Okay. I want everyone to pay attention to this one. This is the minimum rent. Okay, resident leaders and advocates. We heard you, we heard you, we heard you. We do feel that our initial proposal was reasonable to set a minimum rent at $50. We looked at other jurisdictions of similar size. But we got a lot of angst about that and from all sides. So we are pulling that back and the minimum rent will be $0. And the second rent policy is that HUD requires us to offer a choice to residents of income-based or flat rent. And here, flat rents will be 80% of fair market rent. And we received no comments on that, so we're choosing that. In pets, the other thing where we heard lots, we got lots of feedback about pets, and I appreciate that, being a pet owner myself, that, so here we are saying that obviously people can have service animals, and some people say those are pets, but they're service animals, and there's a process for that. But also that we will allow pets in our senior buildings, and we will grandfather in up to 2 pets. So just to remind people, our current policy says no pets, but we have not been implementing. So this is an example of, we have a policy we haven't been implementing and that we're going to implement. We will grandfather in 2 pets. And then I was surprised at this one because I don't know anything about fish tanks, but we had recommendations that the fish tanks size would only be 10 gallons. And people said, well, some people have 20 gallons. And then we said, okay, up to 20 gallons. And if you have a fabulous aquarium that's larger than 20 gallons now, we will grandfather that in, Commissioner Plax. Not saying that you have one, but that was feedback coming from residents and angst about that. So we.
Commissioner Silla has-
Dr. Donald, sorry. I was under the impression that the pet policy is specific to elderly and disabled buildings. Is this actually for all public housing authorities?
Yes. It is. So the pets will only be allowed in the senior buildings, but if you currently have a pet on a family property or those will be grandfathered in if you register and pay the pet deposit.
Okay. I mean, it is what it is. It's not a real hanging point, but one of the things that's like really striking to me is that wealthier residents, when they access housing, like, who have pets, like, are able to, there's a plethora of options for wealthier residents to be housed with their pets. It would be nice if the housing authority actually also allowed for people that rely on their resources to be housed with their pets, but I will.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, this is one where we heard a lot from residents on both sides, right? That were, and even before we looked at the pet policy, just my visits out to the properties where there's concern, where people have pets who are running loose, they're intimidating, they're not picking up after them, that sort of thing. And then others who are like, my pet is is a member of my family and I want to keep my pet. So it's that tension. And I think in other places, apartments that allow pets, they do have a size limit and they usually have a monthly pet fee. So we're just doing an annual registration and trying to accommodate those. So, okay. Another policy that we got some feedback on, interestingly enough, not really from our residents, but more from the advocates, which I found kind of curious. But HUD currently requires residents to perform 8 hours of community service a month or 96 hours a year. So it doesn't have to be 8 in a month, it could be in blocks of time. And there are a number of exemptions for that. So exemption is an adult who is 62 years or older, if you're blind or disabled, also gets swept in if you are receiving other public benefits and you're participating in a TANF program where you already have work or volunteer requirements. So there are a lot of exemptions for this. And this is the HUD requirement, and residents really, once they understood the exemptions, seem to be perfectly fine with this. Yes, Commissioner Claxton.
Claxton. And some clarity on that is them also participating in resident leadership events on the property that may just be helping propel, pass out a flyer,
Yes,
things of that nature, right?
lots of opportunities and people are willing to do that.
Director Donald, this is Commissioner Harris. I have a quick question.
Yes, Commissioner.
These new requirements and things like that, will they be easily accessible to find at any given moment, like on the website? Because I know when you first start with things like this and the months go past, a lot of folks like myself, you tend to forget about certain
Yeah.
things that are contractual set in the contract.
You're right.
How do we-
Right, and we were just having that conversation with Commissioner Reed, like, where are these posted on our website? Well, those are the resolutions. We probably should have some easy buttons that allow folks to go to the different policies if they want to wade through all of them, but we will also have more, depending on the policy, plain language information that we will be sharing with residents, and also we'll have multiple places where people can access and reference the policies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. We also had some questions about repayment provisions. This is when someone has fallen behind on their rent, and our proposal is aligned with HUD requirements and what other jurisdictions do. And there's some options there, and in terms of if there are undue burdens, and there's a little bit of flexibility allowed for for DCHA to allow for a lesser percentage. And this is, just to be clear, I hope I'm saying this right, these will be repayments that we could do as staff. I think now, if we're typically, if someone is behind in there and we're proceeding with going to landlord-tenant court, those are imposed there, and this would be a way to avoid having to take that step. So we think this one is really more accommodating to residents. Another change is on the guest policy, and this is one too that where there's a kind of both sides of the coin, where residents are concerned about their safety and about unauthorized residents who are on the property, or they don't know. Everyone knows their neighbors, but when guests are coming, we are requiring, if a guest is going to be there for more than 3 days, that they would notify management. And we have some limits for the number of consecutive days and the length of cumulative days over 12 months. This one, we realize and want to accommodate people having their grandchildren, their godchildren, their nieces and nephews, and other family members who may want to stay longer, and that we have created the flexibility for accommodating those lengths of stay. But we also wanted to make sure that for everyone's safety, that we do know who is authorized to be visiting overnight for extended periods of time. For a household member who is no longer, who has been absent for 60 days, consecutive absence, they would be no longer considered a household member. We got feedback about exemptions, and we do have those already included in the policy. For example, someone who's in military service, that is allowed.
Hospital stays, sorry.
This hospital stays, Ms. Heath.
So for the public housing program, this one is, if they're absent, that would be taken in consideration, those that are extenuating circumstances associated with why they're absent from the unit. So the housing authority will request documentation associated with that to know that that was the reason why they were out of.
So someone who's in the hospital for a long time would be considered with documentation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What about wrongfully incarcerated? What if somebody got incarcerated for something and they're found not guilty and now they lost their place? So they're incarcerated, wrongfully accused, and then they come home and don't have a place to stay.
No.
So the incarceration is a separate topic that we would have to look at individually, because we can't house somebody that's actually not in the unit for an extended period of time. So if they're incarcerated and they were wrongfully incarcerated, then the housing authority can reinstate their assistance at another unit, but we would not be able to leave it there indefinitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We've also tightened up the transfer policy, and this is where residents are requesting to move out of their unit, and that we would make one transfer offer, and that if they refuse without good cause, then we would take them off the transfer list. They could reapply in 12 months. For those who are requesting reasonable accommodations, we would make at least two offers. On the housing choice voucher side, we also have a guest policy, and that one is a little bit longer. They're in individual units or apartments or houses, 30 consecutive days or 90 cumulative days during a 12-month period. And then we did change the timeframe for head of household absence to be consistent with public housing, the 60 days. We got that feedback. It's confusing. Okay. And also on the housing choice voucher side, we had written that families with zero income would recertify every 6 months. And we got feedback that that was considered to be punitive and impractical. And that, so we're saying that we may require, because there are some circumstances where we think that it's necessary to have that requirement, but that would just be more permissive than required. Okay. In terms of termination for housing choice vouchers, we would terminate a HAP after 180 days of zero HAP assistance. And for those who don't know, what that means is that if the family's income has risen to a level where they don't qualify for a percentage of their income, and basically they're paying the whole rent, but they're still receiving a HAP after that period of time, then it would basically go off of the voucher. They've been paying the rent for that period of time. This also is required by HUD. And in terms of evictions, there were questions about what if a family would be considered evicted if they move after a legal eviction order has been issued, whether or not physical enforcement of the order was necessary. Here, we heard that we should use our discretion to reduce the number of mandatory terminations, not increase them. I think there was some back and forth about whether it's an eviction or a termination from the program, which are actually two different things, but related. And we are recommending keeping the language here. Okay, so for admin and ACOP, those are the highlights, feedback, changes that we have made in response to the feedback. And you can understand that. And you all have asked questions throughout. We have two more related resolutions, and one is the language access plan. I'm not going to go through this summary, just to say that we already have a language access plan that has been approved by the city's Office of Human Rights. We had to update and amend to meet some of the HUD requirements, and that is what we did with the plan that is before you. The other two resolutions related to this are the MTW, which is our overarching plan. We had to modify the MTW plan with any changes from the ACOP and the admin. That is before you. And then finally, the procurement plan, which the board debated and considered 2 months ago. At that time, the board action that you approved was to allow us to post it for public comment, which we did. Guess what? We received no comments. And so now we are bringing that back to ask the board to approve that so that we can move that forward with our plans. Okay.
Thank you so much, Director Donald. This has been a lot of work, and I think we really appreciate the efforts of you and your staff to put all this together and the outreach that you've done in the various forums. So first of all, for the record, let me note that Commissioner Lee has joined the meeting. And I'm not sure if we noted that Commissioner Silla joined also after the start of the meeting. Okay, so at this time, what I'm going to do is go to resident comments on the various resolutions and plans. And again, we have a lot of people who signed up, both residents and non-residents. So we really need to ask you to hold your comments for 3 minutes. We're going to be really strict about that because again, I want to be fair and give everybody an opportunity to speak. So again, we're going to start with resident comments on the resolutions, and then resident and non-resident comments on the resolutions. Then I'm going to ask the board to take up the resolutions. And then at the end, we'll come back and have general testimony, both from residents and non-residents. Okay, so let's start. We're going to start with
Patricia Bishop. Ms. Bishop on the line. You've signed up to speak on the resolutions.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm right now with what y'all have already discussed on each one of these resolutions and passing it, and with the information that was shown on the screen. As a member of the Citywide Advisory Board, I would appreciate if I get a copy of that to keep up with it. And when someone is speaking, please announce yourself. And if the camera could be on the person when they're speaking, I would appreciate that also, because I take notes. And if I don't see who's talking, I can't take the notes I need. So that's why right now I'm not going to speak on any other resolutions. I'll wait for my public comment time. Appreciate you. Have a great one.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Just to note, I will again note for the commissioners that when you speak, please give your name. I'm not sure. I don't think the camera moves, so I don't think we're able to do that.
Okay, maybe we should go back to the old way where people was in individual rooms,
Right.
located with a camera in front of them, or either on a laptop so we can see who's talking.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Kenneth Council. Mr. Council, you have comments on the resolution?
Yes, good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. The transfers, when you all were saying that you would give somebody 1 to 2 times or you would take them off, you have to take in consideration, and they've already said it, but it must be falling on deaf ears. There's certain areas that people do not want to live in, so you can't force them to take a unit or an area that they don't feel safe living in. That's one issue. The issue where you said you're giving 180 days as far as for someone with a voucher to find somewhere to live, but yet you're going to give them only 30 days to find them so they can look to get a voucher to find something. Why don't you split that to either 45 or 90 days to look for the person before you give them their voucher? You're talking about the Edmund Earhart piece. That plays good with integrity because you can easily make that board up, and that board is only for your doing to get your whatever it is you want passed to make it pass. If it's not fair within that room that you're getting, I'll give an example. You all have a search going on for a new ED. Do you have both of our commissioners, resident commissioners, on it? Yes or no? Cricket, no.
This is just for testimony. We're not going to respond.
Okay, all right. And the 96 hours, within the 96 hours of the volunteer hours that each person gets, what if you do have that stubborn child that doesn't move and want to comply? How would you remedy that and not messing up the household? Would you work with a counselor or anything to find out the child may have a problem or need some help to find out why they won't volunteer? Because a lot of people are not going to work for free. And even as far as some of the things that you all are doing now, it's always been on the books. There's always been policy and procedure, but it's like you all are throwing everything out and you're starting fresh when the policies were already there. They just weren't never implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Council.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Shante Hyde. Ms. Hyde, you have comments on the resolution?
I had some comments on the moving to work resolution. I can't think of which number that is. Anyway, moving to work for many people means to obtain sustainable income. And for those people who have ultimately tried to become self-sufficient due to being physically or mentally disabled and have not had success obtaining employment, if they make a way to work for themselves, then DCHA should make a way to work with them to become more self-sufficient. I really don't like all of the changes that were made, but I haven't had a chance to process everything yet. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hyde. Keisha McDougal, you have comments on the ACOP resolution? Ms. McDougal, are you on the line? I'll move on. Ms. Matthews, Ms. Paulette Matthews, you have comments on the ACOP resolution as well?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you, Ms. Matthews.
When y'all call names, y'all need to allow a person time to either get close to the phone or to push the *6 button to speak before you move on. I came in kind of late, but just hearing Ms. Hyde talk, I'm thinking about the that little work program, and also the fact that y'all speaking of free. I believe, I could be wrong, I'm human, but I think that maybe it should be a way that there'll be a stipend given that might help with the person wanting to go. I believe at that point, it doesn't affect your rent. I don't know. That could be something that's considered, because I remember talking with Mr. Garrett at one time, and that was done. Even if it's for seniors or people with disability. But the catch-22 is where as soon as a person make a penny, your rent go up or whatever the case may be, maybe y'all need to think about implementing something for a year to see if a person can actually go through the process and maybe even get the job and be there, and now they have a stable income, opposed to being somewhere that might not last, but your rent has been affected within that little time, especially with the high prices of everything that's going on out here. It makes it more stressful for someone to want to participate without nothing behind it. But it was so much going on, and I know I have limited time, because I have my own personal stuff going on, and I guess I'll leave that for personal comments. But I heard Ms. Donald talk about grandfather and about the pet procedure. I personally already have 3. They already have my information, seeing my dog's IDs or whatever the case may be. And that was one of the reasons why I wasn't going to go to the senior building, because I didn't feel as though it was going to be able to accommodate me and mine. Then it's a good thing that they are allowing pets, but then now we got to think about, I don't feel as though they hardly do the grounds work around here as it is. And that's because I was a former ground worker before I turned supervisor in grounds. So now we're talking about people who may clean up behind their pets and people who won't. Because I know in the beginning, people used to walk their dogs, and before I had the fence, they would have their dog poop in my yard. Like for me, I know I got to clean 3. I don't need to clean 4 or 5. So I don't know how that's going to work out with the ability for everybody to have one. That's something, and that's fine, but we got to look at the larger picture at the same time. And so when it comes to people, visitors, and being responsible for the people who come to your house, and being as though housing authority don't even know there's been people at places for years or whatever. So now we're going to come up with a policy, say it's all right. So now that you done gave that policy up and people come to you and let you know, now that person has been there 2 years without you knowing, or 6 months, and now they got an additional 6 months because you didn't know in the beginning. So I don't know what that looks like, but that's a good idea as well. And far as the transfer procedure, like even when I left from Berry Farms, the two other choices they gave me was like, what are you really doing? Especially when you done went through the properties. I went through all DC Housing Authority properties, went in and spoke to several different people. Know the fact because I lived there what the maintenance thing looked like. Know that we fought to have the maintenance thing changed, but they said they was going to do it, but actually they still did it the way they do it, and they still doing it now. So I have some issues with maintenance as well, and the fact that you give somebody two offers. And then you turn around and say, okay, well, if you're not going to accept it, I get it, but this is the thing. Y'all can talk amongst yourselves as long as y'all do, but it takes a minute to be able to express the resident side. But I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor, and I'll wait for my turn to get my personal, and I'll try to throw it back in there. Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Next is Ms. Linda Brown. Ms. Brown, are you there for comments on the admin and ACOP resolution? Ms. Brown? Okay, I'll move on. Ms. Karen Settles?
Who was called?
Ms. Linda Brown.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Ms. Karen Settles? Ms. Settles, are you on the line? Okay, I'll continue. Mr. Del Pelago, are you on the line for comments on the resolution?
I am, thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Del Pielago, and I work with Empower DC. We work with public housing residents around the city. We're very concerned about the host of changes before the board today regarding the ACOP and administrative plans. At a recent meeting to review these changes, we convened with public housing residents. We heard several concerns that I'd like to share with the board today. These sudden changes feel punitive for many public housing residents. Residents are still dealing with a host of conditions that are reported at these meetings every month, and now they'll have to adhere to policies that have not been enforced in a very long time. And if they don't adhere to them, they potentially face evictions. I know there's exceptions and all of that, but at the end of the day, they could certainly face an eviction for not adhering to some of these policies. Many residents feel like they don't understand the new policies and mandates and wonder how DCHA is going to help them understand them. For example, the provision for community service. We actually believe community service is a good thing and helps to strengthen our overall community. However, we are concerned about how this mandate will be rolled out. What literature will residents receive that clarify what they are supposed to do, that clarify the exceptions, that clarify the process for certification of these hours? The problem is not the actual mandate necessarily, but the capacity of this agency to inform, manage, and track this mandate. In general, this is a big concern for many. Every month we hear about a lack of follow-up, ledgers that are not correct, misplaced documents, unprocessed recertifications. How will DCHA build its capacity to manage all of this new bureaucracy when it appears to not be able to do it now? There is quite a bit of discretion in some of these policies and mandates. At the beginning of this process, we noticed DCHA made choices on the policies that would present the most burden for public housing residents. For an agency that has failed their clients for so far, we would hope that these changes would do no further harm to residents. In fact, one of the most salient points that a public housing resident made at our recent meeting is, how do these policies help us? How do they benefit us? Because it seems that HUD has dinged the agency for many an issue, but now the residents are having to shoulder the burden of rectifying this. So I think that is the big question. How do these help public housing residents improve their quality of life? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ellen Nelson. Ellen Nelson.
Yes, I'm here. My comments might be a little rough because the report has changed them a little bit. And I'll start out with a very positive comment that I'm thrilled that you're going to have zero rent for people who make zero money. Many of the residents I talked to, even if they weren't in that category, were just absolutely incredulous that such a thing might happen. I do want to make a couple comments. One is I know DCHA said they had excellent communications with many residents, but I found a couple gaps that I'll just mention now. Among them was at two different public housing places where they had put out papers with the list of the changes. There was, I think, 3 or 4 pages back and front. The print ink had basically run out or was about to, and you couldn't really read them. And many of these papers were left for people who were not able to come to the meetings. And that kind of communication and these small things of technical challenges and that really need to be looked at, I think. The other thing I'd just like to say is that many residents that I talked to said, yes, I was at this such meeting, and people read things, but they didn't really understand, and there wasn't a question and answer. And as I recommended on several occasions, I think sometimes there need to be small group meetings and there be more meetings. My hypothesis is there's not enough staff to do this or technical equipment, but that's just my opinion. I'd like to say one word about implementation. I guess I'm really worried about implementation because there really hasn't been a really comprehensive, adequate maintenance plan that makes sure maintenance is even done and that people are followed up to see if it's even done, which is why during the Robert White meeting, we had people say, yes, they came through our apartment building, but it's been a couple months and certain things have not been done. So I really wonder how they'll have time to administer and develop many of the new changes while people are living in deplorable conditions. Now, I do want to go back to one of Director Donald's comments, which I was very happy to hear. And she talked about that they really are building some wonderful structures that will have strategy, muscle, that they'll be able to track and have accountability. And I know that's probably very true, but it would be so helpful if maybe she could report and give us some examples and perhaps tell us about how much longer this or that might take. I think communication is so important. Just a second. I'm glad I looked at the guest policy. I still have a comment about people only staying 30 days sometimes. I think you did do better at defining that, but I'm worried about the many people that I've encountered that had to have family members or friends come for maybe 60 days consecutively because of severe operations and different things like that. So I'd like to say that is a difficulty for me. Also, I really question how DCHA can follow up on this, everybody reporting on this 3-day thing, visitors, when they have such a hard time really implementing,
just keeping up with the repairs and other implementation. I also see problems.
Ms.
Nelson, can you wrap up?
Pardon?
Please, again, we want to give you a chance. You can submit your comments in writing.
Okay, all right, I will end there because I know other people will have some very good comments. I hope too that we will hear about the other several hundred pages of the report that they didn't call the different changes from because they were more minor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. We have comments from Misha Petaway. Commissioner Blackson is going to read those comments. Commissioner Blackson.
Thank you, Alethea. Misha Petway's testimony. Good afternoon, Commissioners. First, I would like the record to reflect that the residents of Potomac Gardens do not agree with the changes to the ACOP plan. And the signatures collected at the resident council meeting on Thursday, March 16, and the ACOP meeting held at Potomac Gardens on Wednesday, March the 22nd at 6 p.m. are for attendance purposes only. I feel as though the DCHA is invading our privacy, trying to silence our voices and take away our human rights with the changes to the ACOP plan. We are humans, we matter, and we have a voice. As we've heard from the DCHA, some of these things have been in place but not enforced. My question is, what will change? The DCHA has failed its residents in a major way, and no, it did not happen overnight. It is my understanding that since the brutal HUD report, they are requiring some of these changes, but don't take it to the extreme. While I don't agree with all of the changes, there are some that really stuck out to me. Repayment of rent. I understand terminating someone's lease should they not repay as agreed. At what point will a repayment agreement be offered and how much will be required? The DCHA employee that came to Potomac Gardens stated the repayment agreement will be 40% of the amount owed. That amount is too great and will cause a hardship on any family. I believe that because the rent for public housing residents is 30% of their household income, the repayment shouldn't exceed 10%. But first, you have to determine at what amount you will offer with this agreement. Termination. People are free to say what they want to say as long as they don't put their hands on anyone. To say that a resident's tenancy can be terminated should they use obscene language is harsh and unheard of. You have to be willing to see and prove things from both sides and then determine if the resident should be terminated. The first step is using the infraction system prior to any kind of termination. Please take this into consideration. Family obligations. While I appreciate DCHA increasing the number of days a person can stay overnight, asking residents to report when a person will be in our homes more than 3 days is very intrusive. Is this a HUD thing or a DCH thing? You say you want better address unauthorized occupants, but how can you do this when you say you don't have enough officers in our communities? Pet deposits. One of the residents at Potomac Gardens would like to know if there's going to be a fee for the pets, rodents that come with the apartment. As we know, there's an infestation of rodents in the DC area, and residents have gotten cats to defer this problem. There should be a maximum of 2 cats per household and no pet fee attached, as residents have had to find an alternative to keep their homes rodent-free. I know that the ACOP plan is on the schedule to be voted on today. I'd like to ask that you table this for another 30 days to include the recommendations, suggestions provided from those who gave them, and to allow residents more time to give feedback. Thank you for allowing me this time. Misha Petway, President of Potomac Gardens Family.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next is William Jordan. Mr. Jordan, are you there for comments on the resolution?
Yes, I'm here. Give me 1 second. All right, so I wanted to, as a member of the Park Morton Equity Committee, I want to point out to the board that when I saw the list of how many people from Park Morton participated in the engagement, the number was 0. So it seems to me there's a gap. And the gap goes even further in the sense that when I attempted to match the experiences of Park Morton residents with the changes, the model didn't work. So many of the things, whether it's Resolution 1606, Resolution 2219 and 35, and the commitments in those resolutions don't jive with some of the changes. Or I don't know how they would work. So for instance, we have residents from Park Morton that took a voucher and have the right to return, right? And so how does the new rules related to the voucher, changing the order in which people can come back, how has all these agreements we've made in the past grandfathered into what we're going to do for the future? I also took the time to look at the move to work, which I may be touching on a little early, but what was presented by the director this February before the council and what's in the move to work don't line up as it relates to Park Morton. So Park Morton plans are still listed in move to work as though we were still in 2019. It's not clear how the self-sufficiency tools line up. And then finally, we're currently working on the Section 8 elements that were related to 2219 and 2235. And the board was supposed to have a plan from the director by now, from a resolution passed last May, and we don't have it, right? So at the same time, we're supposed to trust that they can implement something this quickly when they couldn't do what they already had to do from a year ago, as well as this process is backwards. So we don't have a chance to learn in order to really comment. So you want my comments before I understand what we're dealing with, and then you all are going to vote on it. So I would like the board needs to add a clause to all of these resolutions to either have a two-step approval process or to create some kind of caveat where we can come back and fix this, particularly once we compare it to reality. This thing, you can't tell me we've had 0 people contacted at Park Morton, where the people at Park Morton are going to be impacted by every phase. We got people on property, we got people who took vouchers, we have people that moved to other properties, we have right of return, we have promises of home ownership in phase 2, but those promises aren't in the move to work plan. So you all cannot pass this in good conscience. You all have to create a structure where we can really do this properly. So either table it, either write in a 2 or 3-step process before this is finalized. I know you want to check a box for HUD, but that's my request. Either vote no or fix this process so we can really do this properly. This is a mess waiting to happen. And if you took the time to compare the Park Morton experience with the proposal, you'll see it's a mess waiting to happen.
Thank
So
you, Mr.
please
Jordan.
table or put some clauses in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Next is Lori Leibowitz for comments on the resolutions.
Good afternoon. I am a DC resident and a legal services attorney who has represented public housing residents and voucher holders in DC and Maryland for over 10 years. You have before you today resolutions to approve a complete rewrite of DCHA's ACOP and administrative plan. You have been led to believe, we have all been led to believe, that if you approve these resolutions and the staff gets trained on these new policies by the end of May, lots of the HUD findings will be closed out and everything will be fine. But most of the findings in the HUD report are not about making new policies. They are about DCHA's failure to follow existing policies and HUD regulations. Here are a few examples. DCHA is not safeguarding personally identifiable information. Finding PH10, DCHA is not making reasonable efforts to provide language assistance to ensure meaningful access for LEP persons. PH18, DCHA is not maintaining tenant files in accordance with HUD regulations. 23 of the 25 files reviewed were incomplete. DCHA does not properly calculate rent. Only 3 of 25 files were correct. DCHA is not in compliance with its ACOP and HUD regulations on reasonable accommodation requests, transfers, and tracking. These problems will not be solved by the changes being proposed today. The HUD report did require DCHA to update its ACOP and admin plan to be compliant with local and federal law and to be consistent with its moving to work plan. These plans do not accomplish that goal either. DCHA staff has worked extraordinarily hard on preparing these plans quickly, but the documents are not finished and they are not right. There are mistakes. Many of the policies listed in these 1,227 pages do not comply with federal and local regulations and are inconsistent with the MTW plan. For example, the asset limits in these documents reflect old HUD regulations, not the most current ones that HUD finalized in 2023. The requirements around providing heat in public housing units do not accurately reflect DC law. The temperatures are wrong, even though HUD requires public housing authorities to meet local standards. In the non-discrimination sections, minor children were left out of the definition of familial status. Details matter. People will be denied vouchers and public housing based on these mistakes. The agency is setting itself up for liability by not accurately following local and federal law. And it's not actually curing many of the deficiencies identified by HUD. All these questions people are asking about process, that's the thing that HUD cares about. Further, DCHA has not consulted local experts to ensure that the plans comply with DC law and has not had enough time to review and make meaningful changes based on the 88 pages of comments that advocates sent on March 31st, plus all the other comments that people sent. Here is just one example of why the details matter and how they could be fixed with meaningful engagement. DCHA has changed the definition of eviction for the purposes of listing grounds for voucher termination. The way the proposal is currently written, people risk losing their vouchers if they exercise their right in DC to withhold rent for bad conditions if a judgment is entered for any amount of money, even $1. At the April 5th Education Symposium, DCHA staff said that they were leaving the new definition because they needed to be able to terminate people for serious repeated violations of a lease. But that's actually its own separate ground for voucher termination. A conversation with experts on local eviction law could help DCHA draft a definition of eviction that meets DCHA's goals without infringing on the rights of voucher holders. Similarly, the tenant screening provisions in both the ACOP and admin plan do not comply with new DC laws. DCHA staff can and should engage with people knowledgeable about the new laws to ensure that their policies comply. Please table consideration of these plans and instruct DCHA staff to bring them back to you when they have ensured that they are compliant with both federal and local law in all of the details.
Ms. Leibowitz, can you wrap up, please?
Yeah, I'm done.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Next is Elizabeth Butterworth. Ms. Butterworth, comments on the resolutions? And please stick to your 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon and thank you. My name is Liz Butterworth and I'm an attorney with Legal Counsel for the Elderly. We're testifying regarding the proposed changes to the ACOP and admin plan, including the unfair proposed waitlist policies in both plans and overly burdensome recertification schedules allowed for zero-income families in the voucher program. But I want to start by noting that the comment period on the proposed ACOP and admin plan closed only 12 days ago. Although LCE and our partner advocates submitted extensive comments, prior to this meeting, DCHA neither formally responded to our comments nor publicly released revisions to the policies. As a result, we have in fact not seen the full final proposal that the board is voting on today. This is no way for a public-facing government entity to do business. The proposed policies are burdensome, punitive, and will undoubtedly harm our clients. At a minimum, DCHA owes full transparency and response to their concerns. We therefore ask you to vote no to resolutions 23, 19, 20, and 21, or at least make the changes we recommend below and the changes recommended by Danielle Del Pielago and Lori Leibowitz in their testimony today. First, for both the ACOP and admin plan waitlist policies, we ask that DCHA require robust outreach, return families to inactive status when they do not respond to outreach, and have clear procedures for appealing any removal from a waitlist. DCHA has proposed unnecessary changes that will overwhelmingly result in purging waitlists rather than housing families. The proposed changes do away with inactive status and instead remove families from the waitlist. At the same time, outreach required on the part of DCHA is grossly inadequate for reaching families, many of whom experience housing instability and frequent address changes. The justification we hear is that HUD requires DCHA to maintain the waitlist. The HUD audit, finding PH 14, indicates that DCHA was unable to provide documentation for how they maintained their waitlist. But HUD did not indicate that placing families into inactive status was impermissible, nor did HUD mandate these specific and draconian proposals. Second, DCHA should reinstate all local preferences, including those for homeless families and families displaced by disaster or due to domestic violence. These preferences were implemented after robust discussion and careful deliberation. Without citing specifics, DCHA now reasons that the preferences are no longer necessary because there are more resources available for families. But the need is still far too great, and DCHA must reinstate local preferences and prioritize housing families in crisis. Finally, DCHA should remove the provision allowing them to require families with zero income to recertify every 6 months. This would result in some families being almost constantly engaged in the recertification process, an enormous stress and expenditure of time. There's no basis for treating any families with zero income differently from any other family. In addition, this would be onerous for DCHA, which already struggles to complete timely recertifications for residents. DCHA and LCE share the mission of housing low-income DC residents, but we are deeply concerned that the changes proposed by DCHA will have the opposite effect, creating additional barriers. You can find more details in the formal comments we submitted on March 31st. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Butterworth. Mr. Chair, that's it for public comment or public testimony on the resolutions.
Okay, thanks everyone for your comments. So we want to move now to actual discussion of the resolutions. And we will start with Resolution 23-19, which is the moving to work plan. We've already talked about, Director, already talked about. Do you have any further comments?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to comment.
Who?
Who is speaking?
Okay, so what I would like to do is first ask for motions on the resolution, and then we can have board discussions, and finally take a vote on the resolutions, and we'll just go in the order that they're here, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 24. Okay, so let's start with the moving to work resolution 2319. The chair will ask for a motion to approve resolution 23-19.
Commissioner Lee, I make a motion to approve.
The second,
Just a question. You mentioned we were gonna motion and then have discussion?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
so if
I
there,
want a motion on the table, and then we'll discuss it.
got it, okay.
So second,
Well, I guess I have a question that I was hoping the director could answer.
yeah, let's get the motion on the table.
Yeah, Chris Murphy, second.
Okay, all right, so the motion, it's been moved and seconded. Now discussion.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Reed. Just if you could remind us again, Director, when you published the moving to work plan, was this the plan that you did not receive any comments on?
Jen, I'm sorry, I don't, did we receive comments on the moving to work plan itself?
We received comments.
You want to come up to the table and,
Dennis and Esco, we received comments on all the plans, including moving to work.
Okay.
And the comments that we went through at the beginning of this meeting covered the moving to work comments as well, because they overlap with the other plans.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Policy that didn't receive any comments, this is Rachel Joseph, Chief Operating Officer, was the procurement policy.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And then just a follow-up question on the comments. So you heard a couple of comments from public witnesses about concerns about maybe what would be technical errors. Can you respond to that?
yes, so we've been engaged in a process since we met with HUD a couple of weeks ago to clarify and to correct language. There was some references to generic public housing. We made all of that DCHA. And we are, through our Office of General Counsel, clarifying language and references to local laws. And Loretta, if you want to say anything else.
Yes, Lori Bonds, General Counsel. Yeah, we're going through an exhaustive process, Commissioner Reed, to review all of the provisions, because we did note that there may be some errors technically or to some things that were related just to a template form of a process that where we have more detailed information that we can be able to add, or processes that we already have, policies already in place. So we are cross-referencing, we are going through that. We also are reviewing the comments that were received. They were just sent on March 30th, so we have not had the opportunity, because there were 80 pages, to be able to respond back to all the comments.
And just to clarify, we focused on the substantive comments and those we brought before you. Our legal team is looking at the more technical editorial. So I just want to be clear, they're not having a substantive review. The substance is before you in the resolutions that we have. The language, references and sites that may need to be tightened up will be put into the regulations that will be posted as emergency regulations. So.
And that's actually important. This is Commissioner Reed again. Could you talk about what are the next steps if the board approves this today? What happens?
Well, for MTW, again, separate and apart from the ACOP and the admin plan, for MTW, this again is proposed to you all as far as approval, and again, as far as the amendments to our existing plan. So this is not a new plan for the moving to work. This is amendment to our existing plan for that. And so with that, we've approved to be able to move forward with the provisions that are there and any of the new plans that have been recommended in MTW. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead on the admin and the ACOP.
This is Commissioner Skinner for the MTW plan.
Yes.
Does that have to be posted in regulations or not?
No,
It does not.
it does not.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
It does not.
That was, yes, thank you, because that's what I was getting at for the other two plans. Those do have to go for both emergency and proposed rulemaking. Is that right?
Lori bonds, yes, it does. Both of them are going as emergency and proposed. Again, emergency means that we can be able to take effect right away, but proposed means that there's still the actual period to make comments and to make revisions. And we have up to 120 days to do such. And then we can be able to make those revisions and then go and come back as far as final and actually go forward with final as far as the regulations are concerned.
Okay, because and this is Commissioner Reed, I understand the tight timeline we're under, as we have to be responsive to the HUD findings, but also sensitive to the fact that people haven't seen the new revised version. And so they may still have further comments. So I want to make sure it was clear there is another opportunity to do that if there was something that was missed.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Commissioner Skinner again. I just want to double down on that, double clarify the fact that there still be an opportunity for people to comment, and that we're processing or looking at the existing comments that we've already gotten, the 80 pages or whatever it is, and we can make changes as appropriate as we move forward.
That is correct on the admissions and occupancy, continued occupancy policy, as well as the administrative plan.
Right.
Again, MTW plan doesn't need to be published, not an issue. With those two, that is correct. And again, the majority of the comments, because a lot of the comments that came were the same. And so we have already reviewed and have already looked at those, taken those into consideration. So it's, again, as Director said, not just that, but going into the process, more importantly too, of changing them into regulation form. So again, what you all saw were policy. What part of what we're doing, which takes a lot of work, is actually putting them into regulation form that may look different than obviously the versions that you saw, but the content will be the same. And again, the revisions that have been taken into consideration were reflected here, where we went back and the director said we need to change course because of the comments and how we need to move forward.
Commissioner Silla here. My understanding is that all three plans are updated annually, and therefore, if any of the changes that are instituted today are not workable, that there is another opportunity next year under the supervision of the STAR board itself to take another bite at the apple. So I just wanted to clarify that that's indeed the case.
Correct.
Yearly basis. Oh, Commissioner Black.
And it's all three plans annually.
Yes, and the
Yes.
MTW plan comes to you annually anyway. And in fact, you'll be voting on the FY '24 MTW plan in another month or so. Not to be confused.
Commissioner Black?
No, I was just saying that was a yearly basis.
Oh,
That's
right, okay.
Yes.
All right.
discussed, right?
Okay.
And
Wrote it down.
Commissioner Reed,
Commissioner Reed.
and this is one comment, but applies to all three. Is just, I think you definitely heard both from the board discussion and then from the testimony, just the need for communication.
Yep.
So much communication and a lot of clear communication. So it'd just be great as you guys develop that, if we could just, to Commissioner Silla's comments earlier, if we could just have a sense of the direction and how you're proposing to roll it out, I think that would be helpful so that we can understand how the residents will receive this.
I'll note it. Thank you.
Any further discussion from the board? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a vote on Resolution 23-19 to approve amendments to the FY 2023 Moving to Work Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Blackson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Silla?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dickerson?
Yes.
Thank you. Chairman Skinner?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 8 yes, the resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to go to Resolution 23-20. And this is to approve proposed revisions to the DCHA Administrative Plan. Again, Chair asks for a motion to approve Resolution 23-20.
I move.
Commissioner Dickerson has moved. Second.
Commissioner Lee, second.
Commissioner Lee seconds the resolution. Okay, discussion on the administrative. No further discussion?
No, actually, maybe I could just say something of this and the next one, because it's sort of more of a general comment, I think, more kind of consistent with your headed. I mean, first off, I want to appreciate the agency and the staff for the tremendous work they did. In this town, there is no amount of stakeholder engagement you can do and still not get beat up for not doing the work. We know that, right? So, I think what you guys did and the amount of time you had to do it was really Herculean and impressive. I also appreciate all the feedback we got, from advocates, from residents, from everyone else. I think it has made these documents better and better for the agency. And so I appreciate that. To say some of the obvious, I think the concerns that we're hearing about the timeline, I think, feel a little bit misguided or not aware of the obvious realities that we all face, given the deadline to respond to HUD. So, Director, you've said many times, we would all like more time. I know the staff would have liked a lot more time on this. They had to work, 20-hour days to get it done. But, it's hard to hear that and not ask yourself, do you realize the pressure that this agency is under? I just sort of want to note that. I also want to appreciate the agency's openness to rethinking its position, right? Lots of times agencies run these kinds of process, they get feedback that's not what they want to hear, and the agency says, I don't care, we're going to do what we said. That is not what this process did. There are, half a dozen, if not more, examples where you guys thought long and hard about feedback and reconsidered your position. And I really think that speaks to the openness. And I will be frustrated, when inevitably the media suggests that somehow, people weren't listened to. I think people were listened to a lot. And frankly, I think sometimes they were listened to a lot in ways that I don't necessarily agree with, but I support the recommendation and I support the process that got us here. I also want to say, to state the obvious, it is okay for us to disagree with the advocates. Advocates are advocates, right? They have a very clear perspective and a very clear agenda, and that's important, and it's critical that we hear it. It's a really valuable role. But just like in a court, you've got a prosecutor and a defendant, or you've got in a civil case, you've got two different lawyers battling it out. Well, a judge has to decide, who's right. Sometimes one side is right, sometimes the other side is right. We have to act more like judges in this process. And so, I sometimes, we've all been around, we've all read the stories, advocates are upset, the media will report advocates are upset about this or that. That's not our role, right? If we made the advocates happy all of the time, we probably wouldn't be doing our jobs right. So I just, if there are reporters out there listening, I want you to, hear that and know that the drama that you want to report about advocates not, being listened to is not right. Advocates were heard, but we as an agency have to balance that. And for every advocate advocating a position, there's another group of people that feel very strongly on the other side that may not be as vocal. And we as an agency and we as a board have to balance that and make the best decision that we think is in the interest of the agency. And so, I am very much prepared to support both these. I want to say I don't take any of it lightly, and I don't think any of us take any of this lightly. I am grateful that we will have an opportunity in the future to reconsider these as we see how these get implemented. And if we've made mistakes on judgment calls, well, we're not too proud to say we made a mistake. And we'll listen to that. I very much agree that implementation is going to be key. And Director, I know you and your team know that. And I think you feel the burn on that because you've been the ones having to say, trust us, you're ready to implement this. And so I know you feel that. And I'm grateful for that. And I guess just the last thing I'd say is, we are stewards of this agency. That may not mean that we make every decision the right way, but I know what we're trying to do is do what is in the best interest of the agency so that we can best support our residents. Some of those judgment calls may not be the decisions that advocates want us to make. They have their own perspective. But as a steward of the agency and trying to do the best that we can to keep the agency strong so that it can support people the best way it can, I'm very comfortable with these two decisions. And I'm just, close where I began by thanking you for all the hard work.
This is Commissioner Skinner. I just want to say amen to those comments and well stated.
Commissioner,
Sorry, Commissioner Silva.
oh, go for it. Oh, I didn't realize.
No, I didn't have my hand up, actually. I didn't mean to indicate.
This is Commissioner Silla. I echo all of what Commissioner Murphy said. I am a little concerned about the wait list and moving the fact that we're not moving people to inactive, but rather actually, I don't want to use the word purging. But I recognize that that's a part of like the sentiments that we are grappling with. And so I want to understand as we're going through this process, what the impact is on the wait list. Absolutely, yes. I think we need to clear the wait list. We need to get through the wait list, understand who we are able to contact and support immediately and versus who we are not able to. I would like for the agency to keep some kind of a track or record for the impact on the wait list, the number of people that may appeal at a later time. I know we're not maintaining an inactive wait list that allows somebody to return back to active, but I do think it's important to have to maintain some kind of mechanism for recognizing when people were removed off the wait list, but at a later time indicated, like returned to us and are identifiable to us. I would like for this analysis to be presented in a way that helps us evaluate if we ultimately do clear the wait list and we're actually able to open up the wait list, whether we need to make provisions for people that were lost from the wait list during this process.
Yes,
If that makes
noted, and we will definitely put that in place. As with a number of these policies, we've got to see what our experience is. So that we can make adjustments or we can make recommendations to the board if we need to make changes. And we are in the housing business. So everything we're doing is try to maximize opportunities for people who need housing to be housed. And that's what we believe these policies do. If there are unintended consequences, we need to adjust. And so all of your comments about communications and tracking and looking to see what impact is are absolutely spot on. And we will make sure that we will do it as part of our own staff work, but certainly that we keep the board informed as well. And that we are transparent in reporting on how we're doing with implementation, I think periodically is also important. So thank you.
Okay, it has been moved and second to approve resolution 23-20 on the admin plan. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Dickerson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Silla?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Blackson?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chairman Skinner?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have 8 yes. The resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, the next resolution is 23-21, and this is to approve revisions to the DCHA admissions and continued occupancy ACOP policy. Can I get a motion to approve 23-21?
Commissioner Reed, motion to approve.
And second?
Commissioner Lee, second.
Okay, it's been moved in second to approve 23-21. Discussion.
Commissioner Burbridge, I want to thank everyone for listening to the voice of the resident. It is shown here and we are greatly appreciated because there were some things that we felt that were non-negotiable. You guys sit down at the table and you listen, and we are grateful. So I want to thank you, just to let you know the residents appreciate the fact that everyone here listened to their voice. Thank you, Commissioner.
Anything else? Okay, can we have a vote on resolution 23-21, the ACOP policy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Blackson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Silla?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dickerson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chairman Skinner?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have 8 yes. The resolution is approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, next is the 23-22, which is DCHA's language access plan. Again, can we have a motion to approve the language access plan?
Motion.
Is that
Commissioner
Approve, Commissioner Blackson, I'm sorry.
second?
Commissioner Harris, second.
Commissioner Harris, second. Any further discussion?
Just one question.
Commissioner Reed.
Commissioner Reed. You mentioned that this plan has been approved by OHR. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and now we're just updating it,
correct.
like the changes. Okay, thank you. Not my question.
Okay, so can we have a roll call vote on resolution 23-22?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Blackson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Silla?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dickerson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
And Chairman Skinner?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have 8 yes. The resolution is approved.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. So our last resolution is 23-24, and this is to adopt procurement and contracting policy. So just to clarify, the board may recall, 2 months ago, we voted to approve posting the procurement policy in the DC register. So what we're doing today is actually approving the policy. We posted it in the register for comment. Now we're actually approving the policy.
Yes.
So let's get a motion on the table, and then we can have some discussion. So can I get a motion to approve resolution 23-24?
Motion to approve, Commissioner Blackson.
Commissioner Blackson, motion. Second?
Second, Commissioner
Commissioner Dickerson. Okay, discussion. Okay, so here,
Commissioner Murphy, can I ask just a question? Just out of curiosity, I know you said that we didn't get any comments on it. I'm curious that at either of the council hearings, either oversight or budget, did anybody on the council even bring up this topic?
No.
No. That's-
They were interested in other,
so Commissioner Skinner, were there comments on the posting in the register?
No.
No.
No, not at all?
No.
Okay. Sure. Okay, hearing none, here we have a roll call vote for resolution 23-24.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Blackson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dickerson?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Silla?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chairman Skinner?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, you have 8 yes, the resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you. So again, just want to commend the staff for, their hard work in putting all this together, and also commend and really congratulate the community for your willingness to review these policies, to give us the feedback. Again, want to say that there still will be opportunities to make changes, as the director indicated, as we go through the implementation process. When we see things that are not working, we do have the ability to pause and shift and possibly change course to make sure that things that we've gotten these things right. So again, I want to thank everyone, and the board is going to be watching the implementation as we go through, putting in the procedures, do the board training, and roll these out and see what the impact is on our residents, and make adjustments as necessary. Okay, so next we're going to move to public comments. So we have, again, a number of people who've signed up to make general comments or testimony, both residents and non-residents. Again, in the interest of time, we're holding everyone to 3 minutes of testimony, and we're going to again start with our residents, starting with.
Ms. Patricia Bishop, for your general comments. Ms. Bishop.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon again.
First question, I would like for it to go back to 5 minutes for the residents with time to speak, because even that was not long enough. I have some questions about all these agendas getting passed and resolutions. When I put my comment in there, I said table it all, because all I can see, if anybody recognizes the Claudine movie, stop invading people's right and privacy of their home in Washington, D.C. That's first of all. I'm glad y'all going to go back and rethink and rewrite a lot of stuff that has been written. Maybe some can be changed, because I see a difference between what was said about public housing and what was said about Section 8. Housing, first of all, must continue to give the people that they're supposed to be working for fair and equal housing. That's not a percentage mark. That's a 100% mark. As the Sergeant of Army Citywide Advisory Board, I would like for everyone sitting at this table to sit down with the Citywide Advisory Board so that we can be updated on every policy, have the optimal amount of time to go over these policies and get back with y'all, because a quick one, that don't work. Yes, I am the good trouble. And if y'all don't continue to get it right 100, not only me as a disabled and a senior, but I'm an activist for everyone in public housing, that other room is really waiting. Because like the HUD report also said, stop retaliating on the women that live in Washington, D.C. under the Section 8 or the public housing. And anybody that speaks up for us. I know y'all trying to do y'all best, but sometimes you got to listen and hear it from us. We got people that is so sick of being retaliated on that they didn't sign up. Look at the bigger picture, our living conditions. When is that going to become a priority? Not just here at Greenleaf, but every property. The city have already stated that thousands of rats running around Washington, D.C. is out of control. Public housing is a part of Washington, D.C. The Section 8 tenants are a part of Washington, D.C. No, we might not have the luxury, but if somebody gave me a cat, a dog, or a fish tank that is a 100-gallon fish tank, Really, y'all? Y'all gonna say what kind and what size?
Ms. Bishop, I'm gonna have to stop you here, ma'am.
Okay, and once again, that's why I asked for it to come back to 5 minutes so I can have a little more time. And I also asked.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. We appreciate your comments.
Next is Naomi Tolan. Ms. Tolan, are you on the line?
The truth hurts, don't it?
I'll continue. Latoria Henson. Ms. Latoria Henson. I'll continue. Sheila Evans. Sheila Evans. And if you're on a cell, you can hit *69 to unmute. I'll continue. Betty Queen. I see Ms. Queen's name on the screen. Ms. Queen, please stick to your 3 minutes. You can proceed.
Hi, yes, I'm Ms. Queen. I just wanted to comment on communication barriers with the worker and the participants. And besides that, a better understanding of the self-sufficiency program. If it's only for public housing, other than the incentive that the voucher holders have, what is the incentive for them to become homeowners versus have to constantly keep moving to a stable house and not be able to own it?
Ms. Queen, does that conclude your comment?
Oh, and I also want to specify inspections. If inspections are annually and no inspection is given, whether it was virtual or in person, how is an inspection supposed to be granted and or given without proper communication on both sides? Now that concludes it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Queen. Next is Lakeisha Shingler. Lakeisha Schingler. Okay, I'll continue. Keisha McDougall. Ms. McDougall. Okay, I'll continue. Arlene Gray. Ms. Gray. And again, if you're on a cell, please press *69 to unmute. Okay, I'll continue. Ms. Shante High for general comments. Ms. High.
Yes, thank you. Mark 16:13, and they went back and told the rest, and they did not believe them. I'm Ms. Shante High, the council at Park Morton's president, here to testify on a few topics cleanly and clearly. I made a comment on your recorded symposium video posted on Facebook, which states, how did you do fantastic job at outreach if there were no numbers for Potomac Gardens family or senior? There were 0 residents from Park Morton and Montana in attendance. Only 2 from Lincoln Road, only 3 from Kentucky Courts, 4 from Ontario Road, 8 from Kenilworth and Richardson Dwellings, and 7 from Elvins Road. I can understand a handful from some properties. However, DCHA managed to get 51 residents from James Creek in attendance, 44 from Claridge Towers, and 31 from Judiciary House, which shows exactly how the outreach went. My second point, when communicating with residents, how are they contacted? I was not aware or I would have attended. I also would have made other residents aware of this, and I would have gave them the contact information for this. Whether they attend is another matter altogether, as I cannot speak for what others will and will not do. Third point is it is almost impossible to find a new place to live in the time allotted when given a voucher. This especially complicates the time when a unit has to be inspected. Inspections seems to be a problem when it comes to DCHA. Last point I made earlier today, moving to work for me means assisting people to become more self-sufficient. If a person makes a way to work, DCHA needs to assist them with working, especially if they own a business. I thank you for your time today, commissioners. My name is Ms. Shante High, President of the Council at Park Morton.
Thank you, Ms. High.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Paulette Matthews for general comments.
Excuse me, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but my name just got called and I called in via telephone and I was trying to speak and nobody heard me, so I had to call in via WebEx. And I'm Latoya Henson.
Okay, Ms. Hanson, you can proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, my name is Latoya Henson, and I initially became a recipient under DC Housing Authority in 2017. When I was first issued my voucher, I was initially issued 2 vouchers. A tenant-based voucher from DC Housing Authority, and then a permanent supportive housing voucher from Department of Human Services. In 2019, I received a letter from DC Housing Authority that stated that I was no longer a part of the program, that I was getting terminated because I didn't use my tenant-based subsidy in time, but that wasn't the case. I was already housed, actively living there with my voucher, and basically my voucher was illegally taken from me, and I'm just finding that out prior 2 years ago, actually February, because I got a recertification from the housing specialist. I never completed a recertification ever since I've been a housing recipient. So now I have a situation where me and my kids basically, are being threatened to be terminated from the program because we didn't, complete recertification documents on time. We didn't do or abide by you guys, rules or whatever of that nature, but that isn't true. Me and my kids was homeless before we received our voucher. So I was very, very, happy and eager when I received my voucher from you guys. So I would never do anything to jeopardize me or my kids' housing living arrangements. So at this point, me and my kids, we are in a unit where it is an unsafe and inhabitable environment. I have reached out to multiple DC Housing Authorities employees. I have a lot of emails pertaining to the situation, and no one help me. Everyone bluntly ignored me, even down to the housing specialist every day. No one has been responsible for helping me and my family. They just all left me and my family. We are still here. I've been still inquiring about this. I done had visits before you guys closed housing down on North Capitol. I done had multiple visits, and no one, helped me and my family, and we're still here. My daughter both of my daughters have asthma and chronic lung disease. My daughter just had an asthma attack on last April 2nd because of the mouses and the rodents and the cockroaches and the water bugs and all of these things that we have inside of this unit. And all I ask is DC Housing Authorities to help find us a safe, suitable, and housing environment. That's it, and that's all. And they have failed to do that for me and my family.
Ms. Henson, we'll have our ombudsman follow up with you. I know staff did reach out to you, but if you're still not satisfied or if we're not completely understanding the issue, we'll have our ombudsman follow up with you before the week is out.
Thank you, Ms. Henson. Ms. Matthews, are you there for your general comments?
I'm here, and
that was rude as shit, but y'all care so much about us, though.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to do it. She called your name. So I apologize for myself, but she called my name. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you.
Ms. Matthews, please proceed.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize to the day that the 5 minutes was taken, but as I said before, it was never enough time. And so since y'all have eliminated that and changed it into 3 minutes, my concern, this wasn't even part of what I was supposed to be saying on my time, is that they could start having meetings on the property. And I understand that they seem to always have meetings during the week while they're on schedule, but other people are working too or in school or whatever the case may be. So since you want to take the 5 minutes, that's not enough, maybe it should be incorporated that the housing authority send qualified staff along with the resident manager. And the reason why I'm saying that, so they can answer the questions instead of constantly always saying nobody is here, we'll get back to you, or they need to be on speed dial so they can be part of the conversation so that people won't go out confused and still haven't resolved the issue they came in for. That was not what I was going to talk about, but I'm listening to what y'all saying. My concern is my ADA request, and I need to figure out who is in charge of ADA. How does the process work? I would like that to be answered because I'm seriously having some problems, and it makes no sense to keep going around this merry-go-round ride when I'm ready to get off. I've been going through this since 2019. My other concern is the fact of OPS and how my stuff is being vandalized, and DCHA, they paid for it, but here recently, now the subject is, oh, well, we're not paying for it, you've been vandalized. I know that. I don't understand the purpose of the cameras or the bright lights if you're not able to see what's going on. And I get it that the residents are responsible for the visitors that come, but where I'm having a problem is nobody can seem to know who's, terrorizing my stuff. What's the purpose? I mean, I'm just clueless. But my most concern is my ADA request. Mr. Oliver, I don't know if he works there or not. He is the reason why I'm having my nightmare. I needed to be taken care of ASAP. I've been told that I haven't been assigned. I don't know why I haven't been assigned, and what's going on with that and why they can't deal with it. And I also know through the process that it normally takes 90 days. They must be waiting on the 89th day. But my situation has been my situation since 2019. I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired and having to go through this stuff. And at the same time, I know that it also has to be a process for the person to be able to come and fix the problem that I'm enduring each and every day. So that was what I wanted to get on here about. But I see some more things that's going on. And even when I hear y'all speak and other people speak, there's a lot more I want to say, but I don't have the time to do it because far-wise as Ms. Donald was saying something about tracking, or somebody was saying something about tracking. Well, we were doing a lot of these things through the Todman era, through the Garrett era. Now she's there in previous ones. My time is probably up, but that's why there needs to be meetings held on these properties with the people that needs to be in the rooms, and you need to listen because we've had a whole nightmare throughout the time in which we're here, but don't get it twisted. I'm thankful to have a place to stay. And when it comes to the homeless part, if somebody lets you come and stay in their house that's homeless, is on the list, I heard y'all say last month or the month before, but I've heard it before, way long time ago. That doesn't make any sense to me either because the way the shelter life is, living in the shelter, excuse me, can I?
Okay.
Next on the list, Ms. Linda Brown. I don't think she's there. Ms. Karen Settles. Yeah. Okay. Ms. Patricia Malloy. Ms. Malloy, are you on the line for general comment? Oh, I see her name. Ms. Malloy, are you there?
I'm sorry, was I called? I'm not sure if I was called.
I'm sorry. What's your name?
My name is Patricia Malloy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, Ms. Malloy, please proceed.
Y'all bitches got me fucked up. Y'all playing with the right motherfuckers. Y'all got me.
My name is Patricia Malloy. Today I'm here to speak on some needs for the Lincoln Heights community. First of all, maintenance is a downfall of DCHA. Lincoln Heights needs a foreman. Lincoln Heights have not had a foreman since January. Also, there's a portion in the lease that says the ECOP about the threatening and the abusive language that's used to the staff. The abusive language wouldn't be used if they would answer the phone, if they would do what they are supposed to. When the residents have to walk up there and they see the laborers, the mechanics, they see everyone sitting in the office when they should be out trying to make repairs. That is the problem. Also, no one's answering the phones. And I said that when they had the hearing. Also, residents would like for the commissioner's emails to be put back on the website. Also, I have a question that I would like answered before I could get off. I'm at the Strand Residency, one of the off sites. Why is it yesterday, all 28 residents that relocated from Lincoln Heights and Richardson, we received a rent bill from DCHA. We've been in the Strand for a year almost. Our address to the Strand is on the rent bill, telling us that we owe money. Some owe money, some don't owe money. Why is it we receive a rent bill? Also, I would like to thank Brian Harris. With the number of residents in Lincoln Heights was 17. The reason that number is 17, because I contacted Brian Harris. The residents had called me because the manager had a meeting that they could not understand what she was talking about. Brian Harris, I asked him if Nona Eve could come out and explain the changes to the lease or what's being put before them. Ms. Eve, thank you. You did come out, and this was the second meeting. That's why they have 17 residents. I also want to thank Office of Capital Planning. They contacted me. We had a WebEx. I want to thank LaShawn Douglas, John Chase, Thor Nelson, Andre Gould, and another gentleman. I'm not going to try to mess up your name, but maintenance is a key issue right now. And Ms. Eve, if it's not too much of trouble, could you please call me if something I want to discuss that I feel that should not be discussed on WebEx? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malloy. Okay, next
It's
we're
not
gonna go.
funny. I'm not funny. I know you all not paying me any attention.
Yes, we are, Ms. Malloy. Next, we're going to go to general public testimony from non-residents.
Karen Hilton.
Hello, excuse me, I hate to be rude, but when people make,
Miss Karen Hilton. I'll continue. Miss Amy Kroinsberg. Amy Kroinsberg. I'll continue. Adrian Salzgiver. Okay, I'll continue. Anaya Holloway. I don't see any of these people present. Next one is Vivian Donamu or Donamau?
Donamu, yes.
Yes, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Oh, my concern is just like to provide information because many people here in DC need the DC housing program, but they don't have enough information. And when you go, they say to go online, and when you go online, you don't have all the information you need, and you delay the application, and then they say that you are not qualified. The time is over. So all this time since 2018, I'm trying to get in the waiting list, but I cannot access it. So those are something that you guys need to do something for that one, especially for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next is Shania Johnson. Ms. Johnson. I'll continue. Shiva Sethi, I believe is the last name.
Yes, one second. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
you're fine.
Good afternoon. My name is Shiva Sethi. I'm a student at the Georgetown Law Health Justice Alliance Clinic. I'm testifying in my individual capacity about the proposal in the Section 8 administrative plan to shorten the transfer voucher window from 180 to 120 days. I'm strongly opposed to this proposed change, and I urge you to reject it. My written testimony addressed other related recommendations, but today I will focus on why it's so important to maintain the 180-day window. I'm testifying today regarding my experience representing clients this semester and how it brought to light how difficult it is for voucher recipients to find safe, adequate housing within 180 days. My clients, who I'll refer to as the James family, exemplify why this proposed change is untenable. The James family, a father, mother, and 2 young and energetic boys, has lived in the same apartment in Navy Yard for 8 years. The family participates in the voucher program, and it's allowed them to live in a modern building in a safe neighborhood. Unfortunately, the James family's relationship with their property manager has soured. The stress and anxiety of this situation has had demonstrable health effects on their family. The family decided to leave the building last year, and they received a transfer voucher to do so. While managing work and childcare, the James family has still made time to visit over 20 units, applying to several of them without success. Some of the barriers they face include landlords claiming participation in the voucher program is optional. Some blame DCHA's bureaucratic delays. Some suddenly tell the family that units are unavailable once they hear about a voucher. Some change rental prices to above the allowable rent, and many charge exorbitant application fees significantly above DC's $50 limit. While the clinic is pursuing many of these claims, pursuing them takes time and does not address the family's housing needs. One building required the James family to pay $700 to apply in November 2022. The building rejected them quickly, but didn't return the $700 until March 2022, after we sent demand letters to them and threatened to sue. Despite their diligent efforts, the James family has still not secured new housing. DCHA has provided negligible support for the Jameses during their housing search, and it took nearly a month for our legal clinic to secure a new voucher for the Jameses, partly because discrimination is not a basis for an extension in the regulations. This lack of transparency is unacceptable, and it was another source of stress for our already overburdened clients. They knew that if their transfer voucher had expired, they wouldn't be able to get another one for 12 months. If the proposed amendment to shorten the time period were in effect, families like the Jameses would face even more challenging situations. If the board is committed to shortening the transfer window, it should explicitly include an exception for families that experience source of income discrimination. The James family is not an outlier. The Urban Institute found that 15% of DC landlords outright refused to accept vouchers. HUD's report evaluating DCHA stated the communication between DCHA's tenant selection, property management, and maintenance department is poor. While DCHA has reported that tenants take an average of 81 days to find a new place to transfer to, in our experience, when clients find a new unit quickly, it's because they've decided to settle for substandard housing at the risk of their health, located in an unsafe area, rather than risk their voucher expiring. Substandard housing, as has been alluded already, affects tenants in serious ways. In summary, I urge you to reject this proposed change to the transfer voucher window to ensure that families have the time they need to secure safe and supportive housing in the face of rampant discrimination citywide. Thank you.
So you'll be pleased to know that we have in fact changed that proposed from 120 days back to 180 days.
Thank you very much. My written comments include further recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Kokithia Jackson. Ms. Jackson, are you there? I'll continue. Serena Brown Thompson. I'll move on. Joanne Butcher. Joanne Butcher. Okay. Shanine Williams. Ms. Williams. I see your name on the screen. Are you able to testify? Shanine Williams.
Hey, it's Shannon. It's pronounced
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, most likely everybody else already, voiced my concerns, most likely. And I did speak with Miss Shanita Harmon Jones yesterday, and she definitely gave me some insight on my issue. Thank you all though for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Next is Tia West. Tia West. Okay, Craig London. Mr. London, I see your name on the screen. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Craig London, and I am a board member of the DC Housing Providers Association, DCHPA. We have more than 2,300 housing provider members, of which 1,000 members actively connect with us every month. Our members operate properties that house an estimated 50% of the voucher tenants in the city. And we've been meeting generally 3 or 4 times a week for about a year, discussing DCHA related matters. I'd like to congratulate Chairman Skinner on the last 2 calls for being able to resolve those during the call itself. That's pretty good. I have a question. Is there a way that we can get the contact information for the board members? It's not on the website. All we see are the names.
Yes, we will put that on the website.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that was
great.
brought to our attention the other day. We will make sure that our emails are listed on the website.
Okay, that's great. That's really appreciated. I have another question, Chairman Skinner. Are there committees for the board?
Yes, there are.
Okay, is that something that can be made available to us? What the
So we
committees are?
will also post, I believe it's already posted on the website. Yeah, so I understand that navigating the website is a challenge, but
okay,
we are working to try to do better to make sure that things are clear and you can go quickly to the
All right,
information that you
I
need.
appreciate that. I have a degree in computer engineering and I couldn't figure it out. So anything you could do to help navigate that is greatly appreciated.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. The other comment is, do you engage with Robert White's committee outside of like the direct oversight for like the HUD report in terms of long-term legislative priorities? And I ask that question because I believe that our organization, which represents thousands and thousands of voucher holders, and DCHA have a lot of really shared interest in educating his committee. I believe there's a lot of their own rules they don't totally understand, and that we both of us are in danger of legislation that could go through that has a lot of unintended consequences. And I'm really would like to use this as an invitation to work with anyone on the board that's on any kind of legislative committee, or you, Chairman Skinner, to discuss how we can help educate the Robert White's committee.
So Mr. London, this was not supposed to be a back and forth. It was an opportunity for testimony. But to answer your question very briefly, yes, we are in touch with Mr. White's committee, and I listened to the hearing the other day. We saw you on that hearing and the comments that you made. So you have any other comments to make? Testimony?
Yes, I do have one more
Your
comment.
time is
Is,
almost up.
I'm sorry, what?
I said your time is almost up.
Oh, yeah, real quick here. I would like to beg and plead to Executive Director Donald to schedule a 10-minute meeting with me to discuss the landlord walk-in days and to see what, if anything, we can do to get those reestablished. Outside of rent increases, that is the #1 request from our members.
How to reach me, Craig?
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. We appreciate your diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Council, Mr. Council.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's not enough, but 5 minutes, if you all could go back to the 5 minutes. I see you all have passed every resolution, and it seems like the comment that some of the commissioners were making, giving kudos to everything that everybody has done at the same time. You all have passed the resolutions, but you're not really thinking about the constituents. I've asked a question and you all said that you would not answer, but you've answered some. Yet again, the ad hoc committee that you have in finding and searching for a new ED do or is both or one of our resident commissioners set on that board or set in that committee? Yes or no?
I'm not going to respond to that.
Okay, thank you. Answer's no, thank you. Next question. You all know that we've been going back and forth in the media, and some of you all know me because I've sat where you all sat. I've never lied and I don't intend to lie. And I'm not trying to bring the agency down, but I don't like being lied on. Don't have my name in anything that's not true. You all sit here and you all say that you have a timely manner. If the information is given to you at a timely manner, you won't have to crunch and say yes to everything. Yet and still, you all are new. The biggest issue is no receipts, but yet you say, where are the receipts for the sale of 1133? They still have not come up, along with the bonuses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to know why I'm never given any respect for others and answering my questions when I speak.
Next is Daniel Del Palago for general comments.
Thank you. I recently attended a meeting of the National Housing Law Project and my ears perked up. We were discussing RAD redevelopments. My ears perked up when I heard about the, excuse me one second, the choice mobility, which as I understand it, means that once the property has converted, residents of most properties will have a new choice mobility option, which will allow you, the resident, to request a housing choice voucher that the household can use to select a rental unit in the private market. And then I guess once that family moves, the unit that is vacant would be offered to someone on the wait list. I've attended several RAD meetings, and maybe I've missed this, but I have heard residents ask about, can I get a voucher? And maybe they didn't ask it the right way, but that is usually said that there is no voucher because this is not like a demolition. But in fact, it appears that there is HUD guidance that says that residents from a RAD property a year after redevelopment has finished are entitled to a voucher. Is that true? And when will that information be made clear to folks in a current RAD situation and or a future RAD redevelopment, as we see the plans of the moving to work are for the housing authority to RAD many properties? So just wondering what how that will be communicated.
Yeah, we can't answer that now, but we'd be happy to follow up with you. You know how to get in contact with us.
We will, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the comments for our non-resident.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for taking the time today to meet with the board and to give us your testimony and comments. We do really appreciate it. And, you know, we have a lot of people who want to come before, so we have to be considerate. And as I said earlier, we're going to stick with the 3 minutes because we have such a large number of people who come before the board. And we will keep that as we move forward. And if there's a need to change it, we can. So I want to remind everyone that the board in the legislation setting up the STAR board, there was a requirement for us to have 4 listening sessions, 1 in each quadrant of the city. The first one of those is coming up tomorrow in Northeast. It's going to be at the Kenilworth Recreation Center, 4321 Ward Street Northeast. And several members of the board, including myself, will be there, as well as staff, and we will go through and make a presentation. But the listening session is really chaired by The resident councils, Commissioner Rosa Burbridge, who's the chair of the Citywide Advisory Board, will be leading the discussion. And is there any other business to come before today? If not, then I'll remind everyone that the next board meeting is going to be May 10th. And that will also be done via WebEx. If there's no other business, then the meeting is adjourned. It's now 3:22 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.